Hello and welcome to South Fork Sea Farmers Present Bring a Bivalve to Dinner, Local Shellfish for Your Holiday Feast. I'm your host, Alexandra Talti, with Chef Joe Realmuto of Honest Man Restaurant, which includes Nick and Tony's, Cochet Commodore, Rowdy Hall, and Townline, and as well here with Chef Jason Weiner of Almond Restaurants in Manhattan, Bridgehampton, Palm Beach, and most recently L&W Market. How are you guys today? We're very excited to have you on set cooking for us. What a treat.
Good, thanks for having us. It's a treat to be here.
I always look forward for an opportunity to hang out with Joe. We're both kind of busy guys, but whenever we get together, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, I feel like both of you guys are kind of staples in the East End culinary world.
Is that a nice way of saying old?
No. Traditional? No, I'm just kidding. And what are you guys preparing for us today?
Well, I'm going to be doing a beet-cured porgy and sea scallop crudo with fennel and just a couple other ingredients, just lemon, olive oil, and some sea salt. A super simple thing that kind of look nice and a nice thing for people to nosh on for a first course. And I also brought some caviar in case you want to go in that direction for something a little fancier. But mainly, all this stuff is local except for the caviar and the lemon, perhaps. But this fennel is coming from our friends at Balsam Farm. The porgy, a friend of mine, pulled out of the water a couple of days ago. We cured it with beet that is also from Balsam Farms, and the scallops are also out of our waters. So that's kind of the thread that I think kind of ties me and mine and Joe's philosophy together. Very committed to the localism and supporting local product, and just being knowing that we're super lucky to be chefs on the East End. The stuff that comes out of the ground and the stuff that comes out of our waters. It makes it easy to do our job.
It was actually one of the reasons I'm actually out here. You know, I went back to the city after my first year out here, and as I spent that winter in the city and just saw stewards just putting food away, coming in boxes, I was like, and cooking in a basement, I was like, it's completely got lost.
Right.
So, you know, coming back out and working with people like Scott at Quail Hill and, you know, Ian and Alex when they were young. So. But I'm going to make a simple linguine and clam I made some kelp pasta. Kelp is making, you know, its introduction into the culinary world, especially in New York, which is really, really exciting. So, you know, I've been buying it from Maine and using it over at Cochet Commodore. But I thought it would tie in really nice with the local clams and kelp, and they're kind of how they're going to work together. You know, kelp is really going to help out the waters out here, which is exciting.
That's we did a previous South Fork Sea Farmer panel on kelp farming, and it's almost legal in New York State. And I know there's some people who are foraging it off of Montauk, but I know for food grade it's difficult for restaurants. But I'm very excited to try that.
We use some of the stuff from Montauk for our farm for fertilizer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Started using it, you know, with Sean Tobias.
Oh yeah.
Barrett. So it's exciting stuff.
A lot of and so versatile. I mean, it has all these applications that are non-culinary, but also we were getting our kelp from Maine this summer, and we're making kimchi out of it, and we also did a pasta with it, and it obviously, you know, it's the basis of dashi, which is the basis of Japanese cuisine. I mean, the flavor is great, and again, it has that crunch, so you can eat it raw, but it also holds up to being cooked. It's really.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten I wrote a few articles about kelp for The Guardian. And since then, I get the more kelp things sent to me than any other thing I've ever written about. I get like kelp popcorn. Like, I feel like there's so many people getting in on the industry.
Yeah, it is. I think it is going to be the kale of the 2020s.
That's what I've heard.
We should be prepared to be sick of it.
Well,
but
hopefully
for now,
it
we
lasts
love it.
a little bit longer, because how good it is good for the environment.
Totally,
I'd hate to see it just become a quick fad. You know, it just hopefully it continues. You know, continues to go on.
Awesome. So, Jason, are you?
Should I get going?
Cooking for us first.
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to do it. So, again, porgy. So basically, what we did is we just took a couple of raw beets and put it in a food processor with a little bit of lemon zest and salt and sugar. I think we put some dill in there as well, and rubbed the fillet and let it sit for a day. And then then another day, we kind of take all the cure off and let it air dry for a day to kind of firm up a little bit. So I'm going to slice a little bit of that.
I've been hearing a lot about this air drying technique for fish. I feel like it's becoming popular right now. Can you talk a little bit is that something that home chefs can do?
Well, for sure. You have to have fresh fish, like super fresh. So if you have a fishmonger that you're familiar with, and you can always just put your nose in it and you'll know if it's good stuff. But yeah, it acts to, like I said, it acts to concentrate the flavor, but there's also an enzymatic reaction in there that's not dissimilar from dry aged meat. It's the same idea where the flesh ends up getting tender, and the flavor, the flavor gets concentrated, and you have to be careful. You have to make sure you're doing it in a cold environment. When you're air drying something like this is more to kind of get that kind of buttery, because we're never cooking it, right? But we still want to achieve that kind of texture, that kind of toothiness that you get from a piece of cooked fish. But it's not flaky. It's more kind of, lack of a better word, kind of almost leathery, in a way that kind of a fruit roll-up is leathery, a pleasing kind of texture. So then we'll just take a sharp knife and just kind of slice right into it. You can kind of see the beet has actually kind of permeated all the way through. And it's a kind of a fun kind of look to it, but it also has, obviously great flavor. Who doesn't like a beet?
One of those really nicely using porgy for this.
Yeah, I mean porgy, and porgy is one of those things that's kind of like it's a favorite ingredient among chefs, but it's got a little bit of a rough reputation with kind of civilians, because there's a lot of bones to sort through, but the flavor is delicious. It's super plentiful in the ocean. It's not under pressure at all. It's something you can eat guilt-free. There's plenty of porgy out there in the world.
You can always change the name, like we did, to Montauk Sea Bream.
That's right.
It's amazing, actually, at Nick and Tony's. For years, we do a whole fish out of the wood-burning oven, and it was so hard to sell local porgies, and one year when I was working with Dr. Dish, he's like, how about some porgies? I said, I cannot sell them for whatever reason. He says, well, how about call them by, their species? It's a sea bream, and they're coming from Montauk. Let's call them a Montauk sea bream. And we did, and it's amazing how overnight we just started selling them like they were hotcakes, and people eating them and saying, wow, these are unbelievable. I've never had this before. And then you tell them, actually, you have. It's porgy. And they're like, no, it's not. We'll do the same thing. We make, ceviches, crudos, and things like that. But just the connotation of the word porgy.
Right, exactly.
Which is so funny because as we're all learning, like it's so important to eat sustainably and trying to eat things more locally. So maybe all of these kind of local species need a rebrand. So that then we actually try eating them,
Well, I mean, it's when you're getting local fresh fish, I mean, people don't realize how old fish could be when they're getting it at, I hate to say it, even a seafood shop, Some of the products is actually coming from Montauk. It's going into the city, going from the city back out here. So, it could be, 4 or 5 days old before, people are even touching it, where if you're buying local, like we do, within 24 to 48 hours, it's on the plate, which is really nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's one reason why a lot of people don't like bluefish, because I find it to be a really tasty fish, but if I usually am eating it, like I caught it or someone I know caught it.
Yeah, that's right. There's a window of about 2 days.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I actually have memories of my mom baking the living daylights out of bluefish. Oh my God, I hope my mom doesn't see this. But anyway, sort of, and it's again, it would kind of, it was a cheap fish, so it was a peasant ingredient, which is great. But if you're not getting it 2 days out of the water, then it becomes kind of strong, a little much. That's another thing that we could be, because of that, we get a lot of, when we get bluefish in, and it's usually catch can. It's usually a friend bringing it to the back door, or my partner's brother, who's a fisherman, he brings it in as well. But we'll cure it all. Curing is a great way to preserve. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of sort of happy accidents that were ancient preservation techniques that were born out of necessity because there wasn't a lot of refrigeration, if any. So these things like duck confit or charcuterie or fish curing or ceviches, these things are all born of necessity, but it's by happy accident. They also make for really great, delicious things. So anyway, so this is it. So it's, I don't know if it's basically 4 or 5 ingredients.
One of the most important ingredients, scallops.
Those scallops are in there.
No, I see them in there, but you didn't. You got to.
Oh, yes,
them up.
yes.
I mean, that's.
I'm going through the whole. I'm going to do the whole roll call now. So yeah, so you have that porgy. Then you have a little. The scallop we keep entirely raw. So again, it's a crudo. So which is of course it's kind of like an Italian coastal thing, meaning directly translated raw. It's usually a fish thing. So scallop, the beet cured porgy, a little shaved fennel, and then a little fennel green, and then a little. This is sea salt that actually was harvested by our friend Jack from Micah, another fellow chef friend of ours out here. And that's it. Basically 4 ingredients and a little bit of lemon olive oil. You could use regular olive oil. It's fine. Again, you can go without the caviar. You could certainly do it just scallops. You could do it just porgy. You don't have to do a beet move. It's really about the freshness of the ingredient, the contrasting textures, and that's it.
I love the colors, especially for
Fun,
the
right?
holiday season. I
Exactly
feel
right.
like.
And it kind of has a little bit of a show-stopping look to it, but it's also super simple. Basically, a couple of minutes and it's done. And you can serve this kind of thing family style. You can plate it if you want, and yeah.
Well, you're using really fresh ingredients, so
Yeah, that's the
simple.
thing.
Actually, somebody say this to me all the time. Simple is really hard. But if you start with good ingredients, like he's doing here, you get to actually taste all the different levels, and there's not much going on. So you could kind of get the different, the saltiness from the caviar. You catch a little bit of the beet, the freshness from the fennel and lemon. It's a nice simple dish.
And we also, we often say, just kind of try to step out of the way and not mess it up. Like when we're dealing with these kinds of ingredients, it's sort of you don't have to do much, like Joe said, and there's an impulse, especially with the advent of celebrity chefdom and Top Chef, to kind of maybe gild the lily a little bit, go with that extra ingredient that you don't really need, and we try to, as a philosophy, avoid that.
And do you guys have any recommendations for home cooks who are trying to source local seafood or shellfish? I know it's become a bit easier in COVID with like the oyster pop-up shops. You can sell more direct to consumer. But do you have any tips for?
Well, I mean, thankfully, and there's farmers markets. Seems like every community has a farmers market at least one day a week somewhere, right? And more and more you do see. You see fishermen there. You also see local meat producers there. So you can kind of, it's like I said, it's all kind of right there for us now if we do a little bit of research.
But when it comes to seafood, even for myself, if I'm not getting it through the restaurant, I'll go to the seafood market as opposed to a grocery store or a market that might be coming out of the city. I'll go to Wayne Scott Seafood Market. I'll go to Stewart's. I'll go to Gosman's in Montauk. Amagansett has a great seafood shop, and talk to them and ask for what's local.
Sure.
It's hard. It's kind of hard to tell now with labels. Everything's hidden in labels. Until you start talking to some of the people, some of the producers, or some of the purveyors, and find out who it's. Just ask questions. When did it come in? Where'd you get it from? Who was the captain? And keep it fresh and local.
As a rule, of course, wild is generally better than farmed. There are some things that are oysters, certainly oysters and clams. That kind of aquaculture is welcome and pretty much all the time. But most farm-raised fish is being raised, especially farm-raised fish outside of the U.S. is being grown in an environment that isn't the best. Yeah, so obviously wild fish, local is where to go.
So look for the wild label, talk to your local fishmonger.
Sure.
Get the conversation going.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the shellfish out here is amazing. Look at some of this stuff. It's beautiful. I do clams, but these clams, I talked to Ace at Gosman's. They just, I said I need them super fresh. I don't want anything that's opening up. So it's only been out of the water for probably a day. All these local, oyster farmers, stuff is beautiful. Rather than buying stuff coming from the Pacific Northwest or whatever, it's so much better getting it right out of the water here. It tastes completely different, the brine. And, we're supporting local people out here, which is nice to see. When I first started out here, 30 years ago, it's going on 30 years at Nick and Tony's. You know, the local farms, there was a lot of farm stands. You know, there was a lot of local fishermen coming to the back door. And then I was there for maybe 10 years, and then it all started to disappear. You know, I guess the regulations for the fishermen got a lot more difficult. The farmers, you know, were selling off their property, but there's been a comeback, which is really, really nice to see, especially with all the young farmers.
And that's sort of, I mean, that's our heritage out here. You know, the east end of Long Island's become kind of like, you know, a place where there's big houses and people come from the city to honk their horns on the weekend and stuff. But the heritage is, it's a farming and fishing community, and it continues to be that. And yeah, we do it to support local, you know, local folks. But I mean, honestly, the selfish reason that I do it is because the product is great, and it's often a lot cheaper, honestly, than getting it from a broadline producer. It's a little bit harder because you're dealing with a lot of people, a little bit more of a moving part situation, but it's. I mean, I just do it to provide something for my customers that tastes better. It's, you know, aside from all the other reasons to do it, the ethical reasons to do it, it's just, the food is just better.
Yeah. I mean, this garlic I'm cutting, we get it from Rogers Farms. Do you use Sam at Rogers Farm?
Yeah.
I mean, the garlic is incredible. You know, him and his dad came to us, it's about 5 years ago, and says, you know, we have all this farmland, we want to grow garlic, could you use it? I'm like, yeah, we have a ton of garlic all over our menu. I said, there's only one problem. I says, I can't buy 200 pounds a week of garlic from you and have my guys peel it. You know, the labor out here is just, you know, so we actually sourced a machine for him, found it, sent it to him, and the last 5 years they've been growing garlic, you know, and the stuff is, it's amazing. It smells like garlic, you know, and it's hard to find garlic that's not from China. Yep. And I refuse to, you know, buy stuff from China when it comes to food products.
I feel like you guys are so, you know, I have a column in the local paper about farming, and I've been doing it for many years now, and both of your names and your restaurants always come up as, you know, places that the farmers love to work with, whether it's like Pike Farms or the Green Thumb or, you know, everyone else that we've mentioned. But obviously you guys have gone to great lengths to kind of include the local purveyors. Is that something that you feel is difficult in your businesses? Or, I mean, I know, Jason, you feel that it kind of is worth it in the end.
Sometimes it's difficult, but I mean, if I'm at a Baby Carrots and it's 7 o'clock at night on a Saturday night in the middle of August, I've literally done this. I've texted Marilee Foster and said, I'm at a Baby Carrots. She said, okay, I just left it behind the stand. And then I send someone over there, you know, a mile and a half from the restaurant, literally was in the ground at the beginning of that conversation, and we're putting on someone's plate a half an hour later. I mean, that's not hard. That's easy. That's getting me on my phone and texting someone. You know, there are things where like, oh, okay, I was supposed to get potatoes today. Oh, but it just rained 3 inches overnight and they can't go out and dig the potatoes. So we have to make an adjustment. But, you know, so there are things like that, but I'd rather have that potato than a potato that's been in storage in Idaho for the past 9 months. So, you know, it's
potatoes
a
are a
bit of a
great
trade-off.
example too. I mean, the difference in potatoes, you know, when you're buying the local, I mean, customers at the restaurants, whether it be Town Line for French fries or Nick and Tony's for our chicken dish, you know, they want to know what we're doing to our potatoes. We're like, we're not doing anything. We're just using local potatoes. I mean, he's like, they're so crispy. How do you get them so crispy? Right. Like the same way everything else, you know, it's just, if you're buying that local product, it's so much better. But, you know, it's definitely a change in how you run your business, because now you're dealing with, instead of just getting online and ordering from one purveyor, everything, you know, now you're dealing with 5 or 6 people, which it's not a problem. It's just a mindset, you know, and organizing yourself. But, you know, like Jason was saying, you know, they help you out when you need it on the fly. And all these farmers are all young now, you know, so like Ian and Alex, they have a whole website where you just go on, it's all online ordering. Everybody else has cell phones. They'd almost prefer you to, you know, text them rather than call in an order, which is nice as well. So, you know, young chefs, unlike myself and Jason, you know, a little bit more. You still have your flip phone in the drawer over there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth the little extra work, you know, even from the accounting standpoint, you know, I'll get invoices from June now, and my accounting office will be like, you know, what am I supposed to pay this? I'm like, yeah, you have to. Well, can you tell them to get it to us on a weekly basis? I'm like, well, you just need to be patient with them a little bit. You know, it's, you know, they're farmers, they're not business people, you know, and that's a little bit of a, you know, a change as well, and making sure people are getting paid.
That's interesting. I do feel like, though, between the land, you know, there's all these young farmers coming up, and now on the sea, like growing up out here, you know, a lot of kids in my grade, their parents were baymen, like it wasn't a big deal. But now as an adult, I realize like that is not necessarily the case for the next generation. But we now have, you know, there's all these oyster farms. There's
For sure.
a lot. I know a lot of people are trying to get into the kelp farming right now once it's finally legalized. It is interesting to see this all kind of come back on this like cyclical thing. Do you guys feel like this local food, local seafood movement is here to stay, or?
I think so. You know, I mean, look where we live. It makes so much sense. You know, I mean, we have all these beautiful harbors and, you know, inlets where, you know, it's kind of the perfect conditions for.
Right. I mean, the baymen, look, they have obstacles. There's a lot of regulation. The equipment costs a lot of money. Staffing is as hard as it is in our business. It's just as hard for them. I mean, Chris Scola, who I was getting my scallops from for a long time, his boat busted, and now he's working for someone else. And he's also getting people to help him out is hard. I mean, so it's I think they're, and obviously global warming is creating issues that we don't really fully understand, and we won't fully understand for a minute. I mean, I think there are some headwinds that specifically baymen have to contend with that I'm actually not fully briefed on, but I hear some stories.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Peconic. I mean, what's going on with Peconic-based scallops? Right. You know, not to keep going back, but when I first started out, I used to pay $2.50 a pound for scallops. You know, now if you could get them, especially this year, you're looking at $48 to $50 a pound at wholesale. You know, it's like,
I think they'll be back. I mean, we've had bets. So we had like a run there. When was that? Like, I guess maybe like the early 2000s. Like, I was out here for a few years. I didn't even realize that there were a thing out here. And then all of a sudden we had 4 or 5 great years. Yeah. So.
And this year, apparently, the die-off happened after they were able to spawn. So that's one of the issues is like you'd want them to die after they spawn, and in previous years that hadn't happened. So they're thinking that this die-off won't be as bad.
Right, got it.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah,
that's what the scientists
So what does that say? That say that next year maybe.
So next year there will be baby scallops.
Got it.
But the bigger question is, they feel that because the waters are warming, there's this parasite that is making them suddenly die. So the hope is that this next crop will be, because they have a 2-year life cycle. So that then next year's there will be scallops, and then hopefully those scallops will mature another year.
Got it.
So like the next good scallop year would be like in 2 years.
And where are you on the scallop?
Debate? I don't know. How did I just say?
You said scallop and then you went back to scallop.
I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, I guess that's what the answer is.
Scallop, so is scallop is that like a Boston Red Sox?
I'm a scallop guy.
Yeah, I think if you're a Boston Red Sox fan, you say scallop.
Really? Oh no, I'm definitely not a Boston Red Sox fan. I promise.
Because I think I screened you before started the stream.
But I'll get my dish going, you know, because it'll take a little bit of time to cook. But, you know, again, we're talking, you know, simple ingredients. Olive oil, garlic, some white wine. I'm going to throw some kelp into the actual sauce to help flavor the sauce as well. But I did work the kelp into my fresh pasta, which was really nice. You know, it's basically just, you know, a Caputo flour, kelp, and egg. And 3 ingredients, that's it. So it kind of give it a nice little green tint to it. You know, and I'm going to throw a little bit more into the pasta sauce as well. Finish it with some parsley, a little Calabrian chili, which I'll drizzle on the end, you know, because some people like it spicy, some people don't. And then I like to finish my clam sauce with breadcrumbs, just kind of give it a little bit of crunch. So we're going to get the pan.
the kelp, when you get it, is it like frozen?
It is a
Okay.
frozen product that's coming from Maine, which is really nice. I get these little 1-pound bags.
From Atlantic Sea Farms. by
From
any
Atlantic Sea
chance?
Farms,
They're
yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
I love them so
Super nice
much.
people.
Very nice.
Yeah.
They're so great.
A little creepy, but no, they're fine. No, they're great. Sorry.
No, they're super nice people, and the product is pretty incredible. And like Jason was saying, I mean they sell kimchi, but you get this raw product, which is pretty amazing actually, and it's
tasty.
not as salty,
Oh, can I have this?
absolutely, not as salty as you would think.
Can I have some, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
You sure? When? Can I have it now?
What's that? Oh, you want to taste
Yeah,
a little?
well, I mean,
Okay.
Totally.
Well, I
making
figured
me
you
feel
know, you
sad.
make it so. Yeah, so Italian cooking, it's super simple. Kind of like what Jason was saying with the crudos and stuff like that. Just kind of keep it to a few ingredients and let them speak for themselves.
That garlic smells delicious.
Yeah, and something so simple as garlic. We were saying, you're buying the local stuff. It's just.
Are we broadcasting this in smell-o-vision or not?
No, not yet. We're
yet?
working on that. Maybe next month's show.
It's a lot different working on electric than the firepower we have in the restaurants. But we're just going to let the garlic brown a little bit. I'm actually going to add some of the kelp to it, just to kind of let it kind of cook in the oil and kind of flavor up the oil a little bit. We're going to get our pasta going in here, some salted water. I'll let you keep an eye on that for me.
Yeah, I'm
Handle
on it.
that
Yeah,
for me.
totally. Thanks for the opportunity.
You know,
I won't let you down.
it came with that simple dish. I got to make sure you get we get our money's worth with it. I'm gonna add the clams to this. A little bit of white wine. We're just gonna.
You serve this at the restaurant, Joe?
I don't, but after this show and working with the kelp, because I was trying to think of really good different ways to actually kind of fit it in, and I made this kelp pasta. I'm like, wow, this is perfect. And now that they're legalizing it in New York, it's going to become, I think it's going to be a sought-after thing out here.
Totally.
Like you said, the new cow.
Well,
You're going to have to make a seaweed Caesar salad now. So yeah, we're going to let this cook. We'll let the pasta cook, and we'll plate it up for you.
So one question I know a lot of people have been wondering about, when did you guys meet? And can
me and
you
Joe?
share the story of your relationship?
well, me and my business partner Eric, we opened a restaurant, Almond, in 2001. But in 1997, we came out here with the idea of opening a place. It fell through at the last minute, but here I was out here. I'd already moved from Las Vegas, and I was living out here. No, I got that wrong. I'd moved from San Francisco out to here, and here I was. I thought we were opening a restaurant. We didn't. And then I walked into Joe's back door. I heard, where should I go work? And I heard from everyone I spoke to, go talk to the guys at Nick and Tony's. They got the best place out here. And when I went in there, Joe played it totally cool. Here I was like a guy who had been a chef in San Francisco. I was 30 years old, super handsome as well on top of everything else. And Joe, and knowing now how the staffing issue is out here, Joe really played it cool. But anyway, I ended up working for Joe that summer. It was really, it was an eye-opening experience finding out about. Joe kind of introduced me to a lot of local stuff out here, and a lot of producers, and just made a lot of friends that summer, Joe included, that I maintain today. Joe takes a little bit of getting used to. He seems like he's a nice guy, but actually, no. Joe is he's a wonderful guy to work for, and the Nick and Tony's crew, Joe's partners Tony and Mark are, again, just wonderful people, and it was really. It was a nice kind of welcome out here.
It was great. It was great for me too, because it was my first year. The original chef was overseeing all the restaurants, and he had just left at the end of '96, and I was taking a role where I was stepping away from Nick and Tony's to kind of oversee more of the whole company. And Jason walked in, and having his resume, he was overqualified for what we needed. But it worked out well because, his intention was, I just kind of really need to kind of learn the East End. I need to learn about the purveyors. I'll give you a year or two until we open our restaurant. And, and then it was perfect for both of us.
Yeah, worked out really well.
And I was able to step away from the restaurant without having to worry about anything. So this fresh kelp pasta actually cooks super, super fast. And cooking on electric is not so super fast. So, I'm just going to pull this out. I'm going to toss it with a little bit of olive oil just so that, it doesn't stick together. And, it'll be fine because we'll pour this hot sauce right over the top of it. And, yeah, we're starting to get a little heat.
It'll happen.
We'll toss the clam stock right over the top, and it'll be fine. But, yeah, so we've known each other since 1997.
Yeah.
Which is quite some time.
Totally.
And stayed close friends ever since. So every once in a while we're able to do events or things like these. It's kind of special for us.
Completely.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's exciting. One question that I was asked on Instagram before the show by Will Weiss. Do you guys have any recommendations for local style ceviches using our local kind of produce or seafood?
I mean, really,
I mean, we have one.
yeah, well, this is more of a crudo, but yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go. The thing about ceviche is it really is as easy as it seems. I mean, it's just, again, but it goes back to having great ingredients. I mean, during the summer, I like to do things with black sea bass because it holds up, and it's pretty affordable, and it's always something that can be caught locally. But I mean, I keep things pretty simple with the restaurant. I mean, Joe's kind of the ceviche expert with Coche Commodore and La Fondita. But I mean, just a diced avocado and diced black sea bass, a little cilantro, olive oil, and squeeze a lime with some salt, and let it sit for an hour, and you're pretty much there.
Yeah, the key is really good salt, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I find actually I use a lot of the Amagansett sea salt. And he's got some different flavors. He's got lemon, because it adds a different texture to, a crudo or a ceviche. More of a crudo, like, more of what Jason's doing here is more of a crudo. So when you eat that scallop and you get that little burst of that sea salt, just kind of pops in your mouth and it gives you that saltiness with the lemon, is incredible. If you're doing a traditional ceviche, where you have a lot of ingredients. Over at Coche, we grow our own ají amarillo peppers. We're getting them from, Amber Waves and Quail Hill Farm. And I'm fading on his name.
Greg Kessler?
Oh,
Greg Kessler.
the Hoppy Acre.
Yeah.
Hoppy Acre, he's got some incredible peppers, and he gets super excited to, my chef actually has brought in some seeds back from Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And he's actually grown them for us. So there we'll make a lot of pastes.
Just a quick story about Greg Kessler. He was at this. He was about a year and a half ago. He's like walking. I believe he's like maybe in the West Village or Soho or something, and he walks by and this thing kind of catches his eye. There's maybe like a 50th anniversary party or something, or 100th anniversary party for Tabasco sauce. And the seeds, the seeds are super proprietary. Like you can't get them anywhere. You're not allowed to get them anywhere. And apparently they had.
Sure you want to say this?
I think I got the story right. He'll tell me if I didn't. But apparently they had some of the seeds there. He was just like walking by. I was like, I'm going to go in there. And he went in there and he actually stole some of the seeds and he's growing Tabasco. Yeah,
he's got incredible peppers.
He does. He has
and anything you're using, even if it's jalapenos, if you get.
He's also a fashion photographer, so he's just creepy enough. It's perfect.
I do feel like he has that. Not to say that he's creepy, but he has that. He's like one of those guys that ends up in the right place at the right time.
He knows he's creepy. He knows he's creepy.
No, I don't think. We're not saying that. We're
creepy.
But when it comes to ceviches, keeping the ingredients, like everything else we're just talking about here, keeping it super, super simple. Squeeze of lime and.
Yes.
And so mostly like whitefish. Can you, or is there?
I'm going to say yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually done a bluefish ceviche.
Oh, wow.
With sweet potatoes in the fall, and it's something with a salsa mancha, which is this really super spicy, kind of has a little bit of an Asian flair. It just has a little sesame oil in it. Works really, really well. It's actually one of my favorite ceviches. But trying to sell a bluefish ceviche to somebody it's a tough sell.
I mean, something like, if you're dealing with something like tuna or salmon, you maybe more want to go in the direction of a poke, which is sort of like a quick kind of toss thing together. But ceviche classically, and again, these kids these days, they think a ceviche is just sort of quickly dressed, but a ceviche, you should be cooking the fish.
With the lime.
You
like
want
that's
that to
the
actually
concept.
cook the fish. Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Even when we do it at the restaurant, we'll squeeze it with the lime and salt and just let it sit for a while, and then add our other ingredients to it. Yeah.
How are your clams?
They're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there.
It's the miracle on Industrial Road.
Yeah.
So another question from the Instagram is
Is that a website the kids are using?
Instagram. Yeah, it's
The
kind of
Instagram,
new.
is that like the World Wide Web?
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'll tell you guys about it after if you want.
I'm excited to learn about it. Yeah.
Is it okay to eat oysters all summer? Does the water ever get too warm? Which, if you guys want to get into the science of, or just explain behind that.
I'm not going to get into the science of it, but I prefer to go clamming an oyster in the winters. You know, the winter months. You know, they say you shouldn't eat shellfish out of the water with that ends in a Y. You know.
Oh, that's not what they say. If it has an R. If it has an R. Because
Or
eating
the
January is
knuckles.
okay.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Right.
Yeah. Cold months.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Let's go with that.
I'll usually start like I love to go for clams and oysters. You know, peconic bay scallops. I usually don't get in the water until beginning of November. You know, and start going.
But just it's not necessarily not safe, but you often run to a textural problem. You'll get oysters out of warm. As the water gets warmer, the oysters will get a little less briny, a little more creamy. It's not going to hurt you, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, I think like Joe said. I mean, but obviously, me and Joe deal with this kind of thing all the time. The demand for oysters in the summer is obviously when it's highest, so you have to figure that out. You have to give people what they want. We'll honestly usually start creeping up to getting oysters from New Brunswick in Canada in the heart of the summer. They just become the shells become a little more brittle, and again the texture themselves. I mean, there are exceptions, and we actually use most of our oysters come from Fisher Island. Molly and Sarah, who are wonderful. I'm not sure if they're mother, daughter, or sister. I'm not sure what they are, but they're Molly and Sarah from Fisher Island oysters, and we usually use them until about June, and often they'll kind of stop production, and then we'll pick them up again in September or so.
Yeah, so I have a hobby oyster farm, and so we've done like a lot of taste tests with it.
That's fun.
Because we're like
Yeah.
in the water and eating them. And I found it's not, I think a common misconception is that it's unsafe to eat
Right,
the oysters.
yeah.
It's not that you'll get sick or something. It's just that they reproduce in the summer, so I think that they don't taste as well.
Yeah, maybe.
But then I've heard that like some of the local oyster farmers, they can put their oysters at different depths, so they trick them, so then they don't go into reproduction, I guess. I'm not as sure on the science part, but I guess it's important to know it's not dangerous.
It's definitely not. Yeah,
It's just
that
more of
I'm
a
aware.
taste
Well,
thing.
and that's definitely a misconception because a lot of people think the water temperature is, it's too warm, and they're going to get sick.
Right, it's not.
And you can have oysters in El Salvador. So.
I will say those oysters, those bigger, creamier oysters are great for frying because
Yeah.
you do get that crunch and then the creaminess on the inside. So we often go in that direction in the summer.
Well, before we miss our opportunity here, because all the clams did open, what I'm going to do is obviously the pasta cooked first, toss in a little olive oil to keep it from sticking together. I'm just going to throw it all together in there. I'm going to throw this in the sink.
Oh, this really smells so good.
Oh, it smells delicious.
We're going to give this a little toss, a little salt and pepper.
Do you always put the pasta on top of the clams like
You know,
that to get the?
I like to cook all my pasta in the sauce, whatever it is, for a period of time. I also like to save some of the pasta water and add it to it, which is why I'll use one of these rather than a strainer. So I'll just put a little bit of the starchy water in there. It adds a little bit of flavor, especially this. We cooked the kelp in it, so it's got some good kelp flavor. But then to cook the pasta, finish cooking the pasta in the sauce helps thicken the sauce and actually get some flavor from the sauce into the pasta. So it kind of brings all the flavors together.
I mean, I think that the bowl of pasta with the sauce on top is kind of a uniquely American thing. I don't think you'll ever see that actually happening in any Italian from Italy household. It's kind of like more of like an Arthur Avenue sort of move. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then I'll grab some plates and we'll plate this up.
And Jason, I meant to ask you about the dry aging, because I know some people like that are into spearfishing and they get these like dry aging the like boxes. Do you have to be that fancy about it, or can you kind of?
There is a guy. Speaking of Instagram, there's a guy. I think it's called. I think it's the Instagram. I think it's called the Dry Aged Fish Guy. Actually, I think it's the name of that's his handle, and he goes pretty deep. No, I mean, and that guy sells those boxes. I think he works with those boxes. We don't at the restaurant. We just go in a rack in front of a fan in the refrigerator, and we kind of move things around so it doesn't get overly dry. Essentially, there is kind of low-tech ways of doing all these things, but it's also fun to get the gadgets. So if you're into the gadgets, get the gadget.
Yeah, and it might be easier the way you're explaining it for someone at home to get the gadget than.
Oh yeah, we do have the room. That's right. That's true. We do have the space. Yeah.
When we smoke a lot of fish, not a lot, but we smoke fish over a town line, and we dry it as well. After we cure it, we'll dry it.
Takes on the smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Otherwise, the smoke won't actually stick to it. So then we're just going to take a little bit of sauce, get it in there, some of that beautiful kelp.
I'm actually hungry now. Didn't think I was going to be hungry. I mean, I was super nervous. Spending an hour next to you, it gets me, gets me nervous.
I know you're not a red pepper fan, but I'll finish mine and Jason's with it. But I like to use a little of this Calabrian chili paste, which is really, really nice. A little extra virgin olive oil.
And for the clams, you would recommend that size? Do you have any tips about clams?
If I'm actually buying them for the restaurant, this size is actually perfect. They don't take that long to open up. You actually get more. You don't have these big pieces, big chunks of clam in your mouth. But if I go clamming myself, I'll take whatever I could get. And I'll take the big ones and I'll just chop them up. So I'm going to finish this with some breadcrumbs. And basically, I make my own croutons. I hate to use my hands like this, but I cook with my hands. So I left some whole. What I'll do is I put them right on a cutting board, and I just crush them, And then I like to finish my clam sauce with a little toasted breadcrumbs. Gives them a nice little texture.
There's kind of a rule with seafood-based pastas that some people adhere to. I don't actually. Don't ever have cheese. This is probably don't put cheese on your seafood pasta. Go with breadcrumbs. I actually do go with cheese.
I do as well.
Yeah.
I didn't bring any cheese today because I don't really think this kind of. Actually, I've never had the kelp pasta with cheese, so I couldn't actually, speak to it. But look at this. It's just some great ingredients in there.
I think that's the Italian rule, right? No cheese with.
That's the Italian rule.
There is, but most Italians will actually put the cheese on. I don't know who actually started that rumor.
This pasta looks. I will say that the thing that I like most about it is whoever stirred this pasta halfway through did an amazing job. I mean, never mind the clam. I mean, that's everything else about it. I'm sure is great, but I can just tell the stirring job was really, top notch.
Wow, that is amazing.
It's nice. The pasta just picks up a little bit of the kelp. It's not overwhelming.
It is good.
It adds a little bit of brine with the clams. Beautiful.
And Jason, do you make your kelp pasta the same way at Almond?
We're actually not rocking. After having this, I might have to go in this direction. But we don't have a kelp pasta on the menu. We do have a clam pasta on the menu, also with local clams, and kind of along the same lines. Pickled chilies, breadcrumbs, basil oil, and broccoli now, actually. We have some broccoli in there as well.
Wow, that's really delicious.
And I mean, the other thing about clams, are a super affordable ingredient. Nothing pretentious about a clam. They're versatile. And it really works well with this kelp, Joe.
Yeah. Well, you'll be singing on the menu over at the restaurant,
exactly.
sure.
Do you guys have any other like favorite ways to have shellfish for the holidays? Ideas for home chefs?
Feast of the Seven Fish.
That's a good way.
Yeah, you know, we at my house, you know, we'll start with clams and oysters on a half shell, with, you know, simple mignonette. I actually brought some with me today. This is actually a pomegranate mignonette.
Oh,
you know,
nice.
for the holidays. It actually has a beautiful color to it.
Classy.
You know, so clams on a half shell. Bake some oysters, fried oysters. You know, clams oreganata, clams in a pasta sauce. You know, with local squid and mussels. I mean, it's just, food just keeps going and going. So, but yeah, it's a big, comes Christmas, seafood, especially shellfish, is a big part of it.
We this time of the year we start doing a whole fish for two, and we do it in different ways. Sometimes we'll just fry the whole thing, or roast it, or fillet it at the table. Sometimes not, but just a fun way to kind of get in that spirit of kind of communal eating and eating together and making it a little bit more of an event.
How often do you guys do shellfish at the restaurant, like plateaus and?
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of, you know, so Almond is kind of, I mean, our DNA, we have a lot of pieces of our DNA. There's obviously this kind of locally focused thing, but and we also do kind of like a lot of street food type stuff. But we kind of started off with the idea of being kind of a French bistro. And still it's a big part of our DNA. So we do a lot of multi-tier raw bar plateaus, especially this time in the summer, but then more so around the holidays for sure. With, you know, lobster and clams and crudo and octopus and kind of whatever we can get our hands on.
Hopefully we see the New York State lobster
I know, everyone
start
is-
coming back. You know?
Apparently, though, because one good thing about global warming, so there's this fish that has been really decimating the New York lobsters. That's like why the population has really, there's not been inshore lobstering, basically.
Right.
But now this fish is, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's going to Maine. So it could mean that our lobsters come back,
and
and
there's-
Maine lobsters,
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
which now a lot of the Maine fishermen, they've become basically monocroppers, where they used to have, like, they would catch like 5 kinds of fish, shrimp, everything.
Sure, right.
Now they're just catching lobster.
Oh,
So they're really worried, even though they've been having such good years the past couple ones. But yeah, we could have a return of the New York lobster,
Yeah.
which I'm excited about.
yeah,
I am
for
as
sure,
well.
for sure.
And we have some time for audience questions. We're doing this with a live audience. Do any of you guys, and I'll repeat the question so that people at home can hear.
Have you had any trouble with staffing? I mean, you're keeping the farms and the fishermen busy, but have you had trouble with staffing? And is one of the possible solutions to that beginning internships with local schools?
Have you had any?
Yes and yes. I'm sorry, I'll let you.
Have you had any problems with staffing? And is one of the possible solutions having internships with local schools?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that quickly. You know, the housing market out here is horrendous, and you know, COVID has, you know, made it that much worse. So it's not a problem that's going to disappear. It's actually only going to continue to get worse on the East End. So yeah, I mean, we've kept the restaurants. We have 5 restaurants in our group. We've kept most of them closed 1 or 2 days a week, even during the summer, which is, you know, unheard of. Closing on Sundays, which we've actually taken a lead from Jason. Speaking with him, you know, one of our restaurants we shut down on a Sunday, which everybody's like, how do you shut down on a Sunday? You know, it's a weekend. But, you know, the staffing that we do have, they don't even want to work on Sundays, and you're basically held captive to them. But it worked out fine. Yes, and we have always worked with BOCES. We've worked with, you know, the culinary school in Riverhead. But part of the problem is the housing. They don't want to travel. A lot of the kids that go to those schools will come from further west. I do a program with the East Hampton High School, but part of the problem with that is, they can't work past a certain time at night, so we have some kids that come in during the day after school for a couple hours and they'll prep over at Rowdy and things like that. And we've had quite a few students decide to go off to culinary school that have worked with us, even in the summer. So,
yeah, I mean, it just kind of ditto to what Joe said. It goes back to the lack of affordable housing out here. It's always been hard. COVID's made it harder for whatever reason. Not really sure why, but it's this year was, in the past it's always kind of worked out. You're like, we're scrambling, but somehow by the time 4th of July comes, we kind of have have it together. But this past summer we were only open 5 days, which, like Joe said, is a ridiculous business model to have your restaurant shuttered. When you're doing 3/4 of your business in a 3-month span, you have your restaurant shuttered for 25% of that time it's hard. I have some relationships with the school, with the Hampton Bays school district, but communication's hard. I'm sorry, transportation's hard, and also, yeah, they can only work so much, and they got to go home and do their homework and be teenagers and stuff. So it's hard. It's tough. Yeah.
I know East Hampton School just invested in a large commercial kitchen as part of their culinary program. Have you seen that kitchen? Have you been?
I actually have.
I got to get with you.
Want to
East
repeat it?
Hampton School has recently invested in a culinary kitchen. Have you guys seen it?
I actually have. I had the privilege of, I'm kind of, because of my relationship with Spring School, I started the seedlings program there. And Jeff and Tony, who were the original owners of Nick and Tony's, Tony still is a partner. The Hayground School, we started Jeff's Kitchen there, so I kind of worked with them in the beginning and developed their culinary arts program. So East Hampton High School knew about that, and I was friendly with Adam Fine. He said, would you come in and take a look at some of the plans, the sketches for the kitchen, and give us your feedback on it? And they invited me to a bunch of their meetings, and I went in and kind of took a magic marker to their drawings and put my 2 cents in. I haven't had the privilege of going back and seeing it finished, but they have reached out and asked if I would do some some demonstrations and do some classes there.
When did it open? Is it open this school year, or?
I believe it is fun.
Yeah, they did. They did a ribbon cutting. I guess it was over the summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, supposedly a beautiful kitchen. I have to get in there and check it out.
Wow, I had
It's
no idea.
exciting, actually. It's very exciting.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
just quickly, because we have a little bit of time left,
Sure.
can you guys share from one of your restaurants, what's your favorite seafood dish that you'd want people to come in and order?
What do you think about
Was
that?
this choosing your favorite child?
No, I mean, just for me on this, what we're talking about here, over at Coach Commodore, we do, 3-4 ceviches, on the menu all the time. So I'm totally going to jump into that because, you don't see it much, a good traditional, ceviche. So, it's probably become one of my favorite things. And there's so many different ways you could actually, take it, whether it being bluefish in the winter or, porgies and scallops, keeping it really simple. So I'd say the ceviche is probably one of my favorites.
This summer, and actually we do a variation of this type of thing every summer, and this kind of goes to this kind of street food part of our DNA that I was talking about. We do this sticky rice with Amber Way's wheat berries with a fluke, kind of a yakitori type of deal, with kelp kimchi and a black bean sauce that we ferment with Marilee Foster's beans. So it's kind of like 4 or 5 different things on there, all local, all delicious, but it's really about the fluke that's the star. It's a nice kind of summer thing. It's also kind of kid-friendly, too, because it has those kind of sweet soy elements that kids seem to enjoy.
I love that. Both of those sound amazing. And we have time for one quick question.
Okay, I have it. What about local shrimp?
What about local shrimp?
Yeah. I think there was like 5 minutes about 4 years ago that I was able to pick up my hands on those commercially. I haven't had much luck since then. Joe?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the privilege actually.
Yeah, I think we got
No?
pink. There was really like a couple of
Yeah.
minutes where there was some pink shrimp that came that like, I don't know, they were in Maine and they got lost and they ended up here somehow. But it really was. But if you have a lead on something. Okay.
Speak to us.
We have,
Red truck.
so the seafood red truck that's in Hampton Bays apparently has local shrimp. Which
Wow.
are you guys are more east. Do you guys know Red Truck Seafood?
No, I don't think
No.
I do.
So it's
No.
very cool. I don't know that much about it, but they are in Hampton Bays, and one day a week they're at the Green Thumb, and it's just a red truck, and it is all locally sourced
Oh, what day?
seafood. I think he catches it himself.
Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Hampton Bays, and
Thursdays.
Green Thumb.
at
What
the
in the-
Green
Right
Thumb.
here.
Grass.
In the parking lot at Green Thumb? Like,
Yeah, so in the parking lot at Green Thumb on Thursdays, Jeff Krause sources it.
Have you had them?
I have had some stuff from there, yeah.
Mhm.
wow. Sounds like fun.
Sounds like someo's going to have to send us a contact for them, and we're going to have to utilize
Yeah,
them.
shrimp on the east
Yeah.
end. That's exciting.
That is exciting. That is exciting. Well, thanks for having us. This was fun.
This was fun. I mean, I had fun. You have fun, Joe?
I did.
We
We'll have
definitely
more
had
fun once the cameras shut off.
I'm sad we'll try that, but I guess we can wrap now. They said that's okay. So thank you for watching South Fork Sea Farmers, and we'll see you next time.